Hi, my name is Sean Blanton, but my friends call me Sean Michael or Run Bum. I've run over 300 ultra marathons. I've been first, last, and everything in between. I started and owned Run Bum Races, where we put on 11 trail and ultra running races a year from Central Florida to Southern Virginia. I hope that with my trail running and race directing experience that I can help you train smarter, run further, and fall in love with trail running. If you find this podcast helpful and or entertaining, please help me out by sharing it. I'd also like to invite you to run or volunteer at one of our mini races. Welcome, friends, to the Bend Don't Break podcast. Hey guys, it is your race director for the 11th annual Georgia Death Race. I've been the race director all 11 years. I also designed the course. Sean Blanton, or as my friends call me, Sean Michael. What a great episode we have coming your way. I interviewed Lindsey Clemens, who is our fourth place female. She has an amazing story and is honestly one of the most positive and inspiring people that I've ever had the opportunity to interview or interact with. I want to thank her for that. And of course, we have the amazing Jana Fridrichova. Hopefully I said that right. She won the Georgia Death Race, and she'll talk about how she's been training, how the day went for her, and she's just an all-around badass. Check out her ultra sign-up results. She basically runs a race every other weekend, is loving life, crushing pretty much every race she runs, sometimes winning overall. She was second overall. She almost caught our leader, Chris Crowley. So it was really, really fun to watch on our live trail. Anyone who is a part of the race, whether you're a runner, a volunteer, somebody, a spectator, a crew person, helping out ahead of the time, helping out after the time, we really appreciate you. Hope you are entertained. You know, the entire point of the Georgia Death Race to me, what I want runners to experience is it being so difficult and you switching gears so many times from straight up and downs to rolling hills to flats to exposed in the heat to horrible climbs at the end of it to destroy any inkling of legs that you have left. But the point of it is to get everyone, if you endure long enough at the race, get everyone to the point where they let go, where whatever you're fighting, whatever is eating at you, whatever is afflicting you, you have to just let that go. And not to be cheesy, but to quote Fight Club, it's not until you've lost everything that you're free to do anything. And I think speaking with a lot of the runners after the fact and talking to folks on social media, the days after the race, I think most people got to that point. And it's a beautiful thing. I hope you savor that. Every race that we have is not like that. Everything else we do is for scenery and a fun experience. GDR is just kind of something different. It's a Southern rite of passage for sure. I think everyone that I interacted with during the race was having a good time, even if it hurt. So that's really awesome. Big shout out to all the volunteers. Thank you to Byron Herbert Reese Farms. Big shout out to Fannin County, Union County, Dawson County police officers who helped keep you guys safe out there. Shout out to the Blue Ridge Ranger District at the Forest Service who allow us to do this event. Shout out to Amicalola Falls State Park and Lodge. They bend over backwards just to have us there. As you guys know, the race is on sale for next year. There are less than 20 spots left on the filming of this. So if you think that you might want to run, don't think, just do. Go register. We'd love to have you. You've got a year to train. One thing that I will say that I saw during this race, now that I'm just reflecting on this, is the people that finished this year looked really good. In times past, people look like zombies. This is the first year I've ever seen that. We allowed polls. Maybe that had something to do with that. I'm going to continue to allow people to use polls. We're going to continue to allow people to have 25 hours. We might even add some time onto that, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes, not sure. We'll have to look at all our data, no promises. But the whole goal is to have as many people as possible finish while being safe. Okay. No longer are the days of we're trying to actually kill you. So it's hard enough, you know? So we had a 64% finish rate with 244 starters, I believe, and 158, 59 finishers. It's amazing. Truly amazing. It's the most people have finished in quite some time. So tip of the hat to all of you guys. The race day, you know, people were like, oh, what are the conditions like? Well, we had this massive, nasty wave of storms just coming through. We saw on the radar. We knew that it wouldn't be an electric storm. It'd probably just be a lot of rain, maybe some wind, which would be short-lived, we hoped, which it was. But about 20 minutes before the race, it just basically started raining sideways at like 20, 30 mile an hour winds in the dark. And we're all gathered under this pavilion. Is Kevin Sylvie, who we had previously on our last podcast. Go check that out. It's a great one. Kevin Sylvie, you know, got the mic, destroyed the national anthem, if there is such a thing. I mean, he was hitting highs and lows. Like, his range was incredible. Big shout out to Kevin. You're amazing. Then he finished. I mean, I was so happy. He had DNF previously twice before that. So that was really, really cool. And for those of you who listen to our pre-GDR podcast, and if you're ever considering running this and you want the cheat sheet for it, go listen to that. All three of the gentlemen who were on that, Kevin Sylvie, Paul Reynolds, and Doug Lynch, they all finished. So way to go, guys. Way to bring it home. Way to represent. But after it starts raining sideways, we send everybody out there. They get on the trail, and I heard some gnarly stories of how just brutal the rain was. You know, people had their jackets kind of like this because the rain was coming this way to kind of be able to see. But then, of course, the rain was somewhat short-lived, an hour or so. And next thing you know, it is really hot. So, and full sun. And of course, all that rain that just happened, guess what? It evaporates and made the humidity go through the roof. So midday, it got really warm on people. And I think it was probably the demise of some folks. We had 89 or so people not finish, which is still really good. I saw a lot of people make it further than they've ever made it. So we didn't get that many early drops. In fact, most people made it to at least 50K, which is very, very solid. So good on everybody. Like I said, the race is on sale now. If you want to go run it, go sign up. Also, this coming Tuesday, April 4th at 10 a.m., our classic 50K, my favorite 50K we put on. It was the first 50K I ever did. Also has a 25K. Sky to Summit. It's in Sky Valley, Georgia. It's actually great training for this Georgia Death Race. It's now the last weekend in October, peak leaf season, and it's beautiful. 7,500 feet of climbing and a 50K. It is beautiful. You got 11 hours to do it. You got a 90+% finish rate. Go check that out. Let's see. So today on our podcast, I have to say I am very honored to have Lindsey Clemens on and Jana Fridrichova. They have some amazing stories. Jana is second overall and wins the women's race by quite a bit. At the very end, we actually thought she was she had the chance to catch our overall winner, Chris Crowley. Her and Chris both went under 16 hours, so in the 15-hour range. I think he was 22 minutes in front of her. They both killed it in the heat, humidity. Chris is from, I think, Brooklyn, New York. So tip of the hat to you, sir, for leading the race from, I think it was around mile 20, 19 or 20, all the way to the finish, even though he looked like he was suffering out there in the heat. Jana led the race from start to finish, which, again, that's absolutely incredible, and begins picking off all the guys, too. So we'll talk about that here in a second. Lindsey has a quite incredible story. If you have a daughter or if you're a female, I feel like you can vibe with her so hard, and she is so inspiring. And even if you're a guy, you need to listen to her. Her story is really incredible. Her day did not go the way she wanted it to, but she made some lemonade from some lemons. So very looking forward to see what's on your horizon, Lindsey. And Jana, you're incredible. Keep crushing it. So without further ado, let's welcome Lindsey Clemens out of Augusta, Georgia currently. Her husband is in the military and their family travels around. Formerly, she was in California. We talk off air after this about some of her cool endeavors and past life in California. So Lindsey, thank you for coming on the Bend Don't Break running podcast.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Well, first of all, how are you feeling after that just awful endeavor?
I'm definitely still a little wrecked, both drained mentally, emotionally, and super sore to the touch, for sure.
Would you say like the next day, did you have any like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose these toenails? Or are you hobbling around in the supermarket or had to get like one of those little motorized shopping carts like the next day?
No, I had to drive back a couple hours home. So I was just trying not to have to get out of my car because I was definitely walking awkward and I didn't want people staring at me funny, wondering why I'm walking the way I am. But no, nothing too broken, just super sore.
It's always funny to me because like I think after like a really long, hard race, obviously everybody's different what that might be, but especially GDR is like you get in the car and if you have a long drive, you're like, oh, I don't feel that bad. The worst you feel all day is not during the race. It's getting out of the car. It's like you pretty much have to crawl at that point.
Yeah, it's not a pretty sight for sure.
So let's go back. I want to hear about your race. And one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the podcast is probably the greatest quote I've ever heard. Scott, my videographer, photographer, social media guru, trail runner, and now pirate mustache kind of guy. He filmed you during the race and he goes, dude, I haven't edited any of the video, but you've got to see this. And he's running with you out of Winding Stair Gap and you were running, you were really moving. And you had a quote that said, this is worse than pregnancy.
Childbirth.
Or childbirth. It was worse than childbirth.
Yeah.
And I just died laughing.
It definitely felt that way. And I was like thinking about it after and I was like, why is that? And I relate ultra running or long ultras to childbirth. Like it feels very similar to me in a lot of different ways. But like this race in particular felt worse because my mind was really playing tricks with me a lot this race. And there's a way out when you're in an ultra, but when you're delivering a baby, like there's no way out. You don't get to sit there in the hospital saying like, I want to quit. Like you don't have that choice. But in an ultra, you do essentially have that choice, or you can give yourself that choice. And so your mind is like constantly wrestling with you. And my mind wrestled with me more during this race than any ultra yet. And I have done hundreds. So my mind really, really messed with me this time.
Yeah, I kind of crept on your ultra sign up, results and stuff. It looks like you've done a ton of stuff. I think Pinhoti, San Diego 100, lots of crazy, awesome races.
Yeah, San Diego's next. Yeah, this was a step up in difficulty. I've done Pinhoti and No Business, and both have less elevation gain than GDR did and obviously less miles. And I would definitely say it's more technical. There's little parts of No Business that can get technical, not a lot of Pinhoti. So I kind of felt like I was picking a race that was a step up in difficulty. And yeah, I mean, that's why I picked this race. I wanted a race that was going to challenge me. I wanted to see if it would break me because although 100 hurt and I hit some really low lows, quitting never went through my mind. Like that was never a thought in my head. And I wanted to see if this would push me to my breaking point and how close I could get to that and how would I respond if that happened. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, so many people avoid, difficult things. And I don't know, out of all the races that I've run and directed, I think this is definitely interesting, very special race. I don't think it's the hardest thing around, but whatever, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the weather, the time of year, the up and down, the dirt roads towards I don't know what it is, but it's like at some, and I said that before the race, at some point, if you stay out there long enough, you will get to the point where you're like questioning running, life. And yeah, I don't know. There's something beautiful in that, you know?
Oh yeah. 100%.
So my question for you is, so you signed up for this race. Did you have the intention of like coming and throwing down and trying to race this? Okay. Take us through that. Were you looking at other people? Like who's running? Like what are her results?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I trained my butt off for this race, like harder. I logged more total volume by a substantial amount than I did for either of my hundreds. This was the first race that was close enough proximity to home that I was able to train on the course.
Oh.
I also knew that I kind of didn't have a choice, I felt like, with this race. Like, we just don't have that kind of elevation gain around here. So I told my husband, I was like, I have to go. Like, I'm going to go to the mountains. So I spent several weekends training in the mountains on the course. I always hit the hardest part of the course, the front, and made sure I got the most climbing I could each time I went out there. And I came in, like, I had no injuries, missed 0 workouts, just felt phenomenal. I felt like calm, ready, confident, and I wanted to throw down 100%. And I definitely wanted podium, like just top 3. Hope to be as close to the top as I could. I definitely wanted to be competitive. I was scouting out my competition, anything and everything. I felt ready here in, Augusta. We have a guy, Roy, who's done the race 4 times already. My good friend Wes, I train with all the time. He's done the race. So I had friends around me who gave me tons of course specific knowledge, walked me through the whole thing. Like, I felt like I was just handed like every tool I needed for this race. And I was like, you have 0 excuses, Lindsey.
Right.
And yeah. And it did not happen. I fell just outside and it was hard. It was like a big block for me to get over, that my day wasn't going like as I planned, and I couldn't catch the girls, and I wasn't having the day I wanted. And that was disappointing. And I've had to wrestle with that a lot and be like, what went wrong? How can I do better? So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about, and that's amazing. I mean, you killed it. I mean, watching the video of you running out of Winding Stair Gap, I mean, whatever that is, 45 or so miles into the race, like at not a jog, but like just going for it. I mean, that was incredible. So let's talk about what went right. So like, what do you think that you did correctly? I mean, it sounds like you had all the beta. I think, you know, if I'll segue for a second, I want to come back to that, but I think a lot of people I see that don't finish Georgia Death Race, I think they didn't get all the beta. They didn't train on it. A lot of people aren't able to, maybe because they live somewhere else, like Florida, Ohio, wherever it might be. So it's like, unless you're just beating yourself up relentlessly, I mean, and even then, I mean, you know, when you have that, I've seen this before, I've trained on it, I'm training for that. And then other people have told me, I mean, because you can go jump on the course and do all of it, but unless you do the whole thing together, there's like, I feel like there's a lot of things kind of get lost in translation. So it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to go out there and just do the Duncan Ridge Trail or Coosa repeats or whatever. But then you don't get where you actually have to run, or can run rather, on the back half of the course, you know? So what do you think you did right, and how did that play to your advantage?
A big thing I felt I did right for this race was, usually I get horrible pre-race anxiety. And that was something I was like, I got to turn this around, because I show up to my hundreds completely drained. Like the whole week I've just stressed myself out. I was like, I can't keep doing that. I need to figure out how to fix this. And so I felt very calm and confident. So I felt really good about how I came into the race. And of course, I know like anything can go wrong. It still might not go perfect, but I felt just very at peace coming into the race. So I was really happy that I got that turned around. And then I felt like my plan was to be extremely patient on like the first 37 when we're on the DRT. I was like, you have to be patient, like stay within yourself and be patient. And people are going to burn themselves out, and it's going to come down to who has legs left once you get off of those hard miles. And so I just kept not going to worry about what's going on around me. I'm not going to worry about who's ahead of me. Like, I'm just going to stay within myself and like be patient. And so I felt like I was very, very patient for what cards I was dealt that day. Let's see.
Do you think, so for a lot of people who've run this before or attempted this before, we changed the start this year. So instead of being at Vogel State Park, we started at Byron Herbert Reese Farm, which actually I liked it better. It made for like 2.5 miles on dirt road, not a ton of elevation gain, pretty flat. And it really thinned people out. But at the very beginning of the race, in sideways rain where you can't see that many people, it's dark, are you kind of going out hard? Or are you just going out jogging? Are you looking at like, okay, that's a girl right there. There's another lady. All right. Okay. Like counting, like, what are you racing like the other women? Are you kind of looking at stuff at that point? Or are you just kind of, okay, let's see how the day goes?
I was. So there was like a big pack, like all together, and I was just behind them. But because of the rain and the dark and people having their jackets on, I thought I could kind of tell that there were two girls, but I wasn't really sure just because of the rain, the dark, the jacket. So I was having trouble like picking out like who was in that pack. So it was kind of frustrating because I was trying to go like just behind them and like keep an eye. So I kind of had a guess of how many were ahead of me, but I kind of had a guess in my head and I really wasn't sure. So I went out just behind them. I felt like I was staying within myself, but using that road section to my advantage. Like it's easy to run on. But yeah, I couldn't really see who was there, unfortunately.
At what point, like, in the first aid station, are you like, hey, how many ladies are in front of me? Or at what point were you kind of asking, or did you know?
The first time I asked was where we get our first drop bag, which is mile 27, right?
Point Bravo. Yep.
Yeah. So that was the first time I asked. And I think I heard that which I saw two of the girls at the Skeena out and back. Mm-hmm. I saw two of the girls there. So they weren't far ahead of me. And I was like, okay, there's two there. And I didn't know if there was another one ahead. I didn't see, which there was because she's kicking butt. But, but yeah, I saw those two. And Mo, the girl I was talking with at the end, she had passed me somewhere right around there, right after Skeena. And she just like flew by me in this cute dress and her hair down. And she was like smiling and so spunky. And I was like, I wasn't even mad. I was like, she is just so cute and so cool. I hope she goes and kicks butt. Like, I kind of hope I'm going to catch her, but she's just so awesome. And a bunch of people were all talking about her throughout the race. We're like, did you see that girl? Like, with her dress and her hair, and she was just so smiling. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so awesome. I hope she does so good. But so yeah, I saw the two girls there, and then I asked at the first drop bag. I was like, it's a little too early to start racing, but I asked, and then I found out that there were three, and I told them, I was like, okay, it's early. I'm trying to be patient. I'm trying to save my legs. Like, I'm going to catch them. It's okay. And they were like, yeah, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. You're going to catch them. So I was like, okay. And then I had texted my coach because of your awesome tracking. I could, every once in a while when I would get service on my phone,
check where they were.
Well, I'd text my coach and I'd be like, okay, because he's back in California, and I'd have him check the live tracking. I was like, how many girls are ahead of me and how far? And I didn't text him until mile, like, I think 35. And I texted him and he said that there were 3 girls ahead of me, and he sent me like a screenshot. So like if I'd sat there and stared at it, I could have known like how big the gaps were, but
Right.
I was running and I was like, I don't want to know that much information. There's 3 girls ahead of me, but I probably shouldn't have asked just yet, because that's when it started to get in my head and mess with me. And I pretty quickly had a breakdown after that. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You know what I think is always like really like the out and back to Skeena, if you're racing, doesn't matter if you're male or female, but like typically the top people, like you're going to be on that 1 mile. So I guess technically it's like 2.2 miles round trip, right? So you're going to see somebody in front of you unless they're just that far in front of you. And I think it's always kind of like, I used to love this in like races. If you ever pass anybody or whatever, it's like, I don't care how out of breath you are. It's like, you got to just be like, little water in the face. Like, oh, I feel great. How are you?
Yeah.
You're looking great. You know, and then you get around the corner and you're throwing up or whatever. But you can always tell, like, you know, it's if you're on the Outback Skeena, if you're going downhill, like you haven't turned around yet, and you see somebody coming uphill and they're like, you know, upright, they don't look hunched over, you know, they're smiling, they're not breathing hard. It's like so defeating. You're like, oh gosh, like I can't break this person.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you hit Long Creek, which is where you go from single track to dirt roads for, I guess, total about like 8 miles, before jumping back onto single track, were you able to just like, okay, cool, now it's time to like start running? And were you able to kind of hammer?
Well, that's what I had hoped. I had like, what went wrong is I had the worst GI issues of any race. And it started, I was trying to remember exactly when it started, but I think it started like right around the second aid station. So like extremely early in the race. Like, and I just had like constant diarrhea and I could not figure out how to get it to stop. I took 2 Imodium, 3 Pepto-Bismol, and I finally took a Zofran later in the race. And like, it was I've never ever experienced that. Like maybe at like mile 70 and 100 or something, I'll have like a couple miles where my stomach's upset or something. Yeah, sure. You get nauseous. Like I've gotten nauseous, but I've never had that. And like so early in the race. And I was like, what is going on? And I just kept trying to like, I was fixating on trying to fix it. And I was like, okay, maybe if I eat bananas, like the bananas will stop it up. Like, and then I was like, nope, that's not working. Like, okay, what can I eat? What can I get down? Like maybe if I had like goo salt stick caps and they had ginger root in them. I was like, maybe if I take those, it'll stop. Nope, that didn't work. I had ginger candy. That didn't work. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't fix this. Usually I can fix something and get it turned around. And like, I could not fix it. And so I had hoped, that's when I had the breakdown, I think was at that aid station, because I had texted my coach not long before that and found out about the 3 girls. And I just like lost it. Like when I got into there and was like hysterical and was super upset and was like, I can't fix my stomach. This has been going on for hours. I don't know what is going on. And I did pick up the pace out of that aid station. And I think that's because I started to switch my mental game around at that point, which helped my legs and body respond. But it was still a struggle. Like I didn't get the stomach stuff to stop until I think the Zofran is what turned it around. And that was like mile 50. So
wow.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know what Zofran is, it's an anti-nausea, like, you know, prescription. It's like, yeah, if you have nausea, like that is like, it's pretty much what sometimes EMS will give it to people, if I'm not mistaken. Also in the, like pretty much in hospital settings, almost like, you know, people are really, you know, and I've had to take Zofran before from being sick. And I mean, it's pretty much your nausea goes away almost instantly. So if you're feeling that bad that you have to take a Zofran, I know you're not feeling good. Ugh.
No, it was rough. And like, I was saving my legs, but then there'd be a runnable downhill on the earlier, like on the DRT, like some of the downhills aren't technical, you can run them, But because my stomach hurt so bad, just the
Oof.
pounding of the
Ugh.
downhill, it felt like my intestines were like being ripped. It was horrible. So I couldn't run as hard as I wanted to on the downhills. Like, and then I kept like, okay, maybe if I slow down, I can force down something and it'll stop it. And like, I couldn't seem to fix it. It was incredibly frustrating. And so I didn't feel like I could run like to my potential. Like, I don't know how my fitness really was because my body didn't let me respond like I wanted to. And it was super frustrating, but that's ultras. Like,
Yeah.
I saw so many people puking their brains out on the side of the roads, like Nimblewell. Okay. Later in the race, it got hot, to be expected. People are going to puke and get nauseous, but like, I don't know. It was just so frustrating that it was so early. I couldn't fix it no matter what I was trying, and I couldn't run like I wanted to. So it was frustrating. But yes, I did start to switch my mental game coming out of that aid station, and I was able to like start running better. So
you come down to Jake Bull at any point, like later on in the race, past Winding Stair, were you like, did you know that there was another woman in front of you, like close enough? You're like, oh man, I can get her. No.
Mm-mm. No, I think they were like 40 minutes. I heard there were like about a half hour to 40-minute gap. And so in my head, I was like, well, there are still a lot of miles left. Like, they could start having heat issues. I don't wish anything bad on anyone, but I was like, they could get an injury could pop up. They could start having really bad GI issues. Like, anything can happen. There's still a lot of time left. And so it was a big enough gap that I never saw him. I was able to hunt down men. So I had to fixate on just hunting down men, but I never saw them after that Skeena out and back. I never saw them again. So, I mean, the girls kicked butt. Like, they kicked butt at this race. Like, the two top girls were in the top 4. I don't know where the third place girl fell, how she fell overall. I was 16th. Like, I know when I was ranked with the men, I was ranked like 40th. Like, I knew there were not going to be 40 men ahead of me, but like, we were, and they kicked butt. Like, they did phenomenal. So props to them.
That ultra sign up ranking is whack, it's like, I don't, it's like somebody like has some algorithm that involves taking a dart and just throwing it at the wall and seeing where it hits. No, women destroyed GDR this year, yourself included. I think we had 5 women in the top 20, if I'm not mistaken, and
so awesome.
3 in the top 10. I could be wrong. Phenomenal. I'd have to look at that.
So phenomenal.
That's awesome. So, you come into the park at the very end, you're like, oh, okay, at that point, are you still feeling bad? Or you know that they're so far in front of you, most likely that you're not going to catch them. So what is your mental game plan? Is it just to kind of like dial it in, or just kind of, not hurt yourself? Or are you still like, I'm going to go like, balls of the bandsaw and just go as hard as I can?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was like, I'm going to try as hard as I can, regardless of whether I'm going to catch them or not. I'm going to see how fast I can end up with the time, or how much I can get out of this race, because I worked my butt off training for this. I'm not going to just give up on myself because I'm not where I want to be. And like you talked about before the race, like, the picture of the spike and it needing to, like, what do you need to surrender? And so I was thinking about that like all day, like what am I holding on to? What do I need to surrender? And I felt like one of the main things that came up for me was like feeling like I need to prove myself or prove that I'm a good runner by like how I place or what my time is. And I was like, you know what? That's not true. Like, I am a good runner regardless of whether I get X time or top 3. Like, yeah, I wanted that today, but that's not how ultra running always goes. Like, you're not always going to have the cards fall perfectly and have your race go as you planned. And so I'm just going to have to let that go. And I'm going to have to like run a race that I am proud of and give it my all. I'm not going to just quit on myself because my day is not going how I wanted. And so, and I always want to get as much as I can. Like, I want to do many more ultras. And so they're all learning experiences. And if you like just quit because your day is not going right and you don't push yourself, you're not going to you're not going to grow as much from each race as you could have. And so I have San Diego 100 in like 9 weeks. So I'm like,
wow.
If nothing else, this is going to be a good training day for my next 100. So like, get as much as I can out of it, whatever that looks like. So
what a great mentality. I mean, seriously, that's awesome. Wow. I mean, you can't get any more awesome than that. I'd say two last things I want to say. Obviously, we talked about childbirth. So you have kids. You told me earlier your husband serves in the military. Thank you for his service. And you guys have kind of moved around, slightly. I'm sure you're an awesome mom. I saw them very briefly out there. I didn't get to talk to them. How much does that help or hurt having, your family there? Are you like, oh man, I got to see them? Or, if you're having a bad day, you feel kind of, you don't want to see them. Like, how did that play for you?
My family, I don't know. My family was not there. They were back home this time.
Oh, I apologize.
My kids weren't
Just
there.
kidding.
There were a lot of cute kids out there, and it was hard to see them, but they do support me like 100%. I am very lucky. I hear from a lot of female ultra runners, like that's one of their biggest struggles. Their spouse or significant other is like gives them a hard time about it. And he like 100% believes in me. He lets me go and train in the mountains. Like I train like crazy, and he supports it. So I am very lucky. And my kids, like they are 7 and 9. So sometimes like, oh, I miss you. Like, I don't want you to go to a race, but they're always like, but they're always like praying for me and like, don't get any owies and you're going to win, Mom. And, and
I love it.
They're really good cheerleaders, but like certain races, it's just logistically sometimes harder for the family and the kids to come with. And I'm like, I didn't have a crew or pacers for this race. I mean, I know the pacer rule, which I think is actually really cool. And I wish more front races like Western States and stuff would do that to the front pack, like even the playing field a little bit. Like, I'm sorry. But so I knew that off the bat, and then just like getting to the aid stations and all that, I was like, just forget it. Like, it is too hard. Don't even worry about it. Like, I know you, I'm coming home to you, and I'll see you the next day after. Like, it's okay. It's not worth it. So,
for sure.
But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, shout out to the fam. So men, spouses, boyfriends, significant others, life partners, whatever you want to call yourself. You heard it here from Lindsey. Support your lady. Okay, ladies, support your men. Hold on loosely, and definitely support them doing whatever, because I cannot agree more with that. If you're married to somebody, dating somebody, whatever, and they do not support what your passion is and what your hobby is and where you go to get a release and get away from things, it's never going to work. So that makes me very, very happy to hear that you got a good man and good family out there. You're blessed. Yeah. So thank you for coming and taking time out of your busy life, your family life, and talking about your experience at GDR. It sounds amazing. Obviously, didn't turn out the way you want. I hope maybe we see you in the future. If you feel like you have unfinished business or whatnot. Last thing I'll ask you, briefly is, how awesome was Kevin Sylvie? We had him on the last podcast talking about GDR. This was his third time attempting it. He finished. He sung the national anthem. How awesome was that at the start?
Yeah, that's super awesome, especially like my husband and being in the military. That kind of stuff's very important to our family. Yeah, that was super awesome. I'm proud of him, that guy. I'm sure it's a little nerve-wracking singing in front of all those people and before your own race too. But that was super awesome. I'm glad you guys included that. That was cool.
Heck yeah. Well, Lindsey, I appreciate you coming on, and I hope to see you soon at another race, whether it's one of ours or just out there. Best of luck at San Diego 100. I know you have a blast out there. San Diego is awesome. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Up next on the podcast today, talking about Georgia Death Race, is our ladies winner and almost overall winner of the 2023 Georgia Death Race. It is Jana Fridrichova. Hopefully I said that right. And she is from Hagerstown, Maryland. Did I get any of that right?
You got all of it right, including my last name. You said it almost perfectly with a Slovakian accent.
Well, if there's one thing I get mistaken for all of the time, it's that I'm Slovakian.
I can see that.
Okay, so let's talk about your race. First of all, second of all, you're also on the Run Bum Bend Don't Break running team, which is awesome. We appreciate you being on and being a part of that. You inspire a lot of people. This past weekend, I watched you race all out. It was cool to see that. From a race directing standpoint, on my races, I'm kind of driving around the front of the pack to each aid station to try to make sure that everything is marked okay. I remember seeing you a couple times, and you're all business, but definitely smiling a lot, which was really cool to see. I was able to follow you on our live trail timing and stuff like that. And towards the end of the race, what was really, really cool was I thought, and I was posting on our Run Bum Facebook page, you actually got I think you finished within 20 minutes of the overall winner, which was Chris Crowley, excuse me. I apologize, Chris Crowley, who led basically from mile 20, and you both broke 16 hours. You were in the 15-hour range, which is amazing. So why don't you take us back to how your race went, kind of what your strategy was. Were you racing overall? Were you racing the other women? Were you just out there to have a good time? Tell me about your day.
So when I was selected for the Run Bum Team Blue, and you and I talked, and I was like, I want to do death race, and you were like, yeah, totally. That's when I started preparing, because if I sign up for a race, I want to show up and do it well. I don't want to just show up. So couple months before death race, I started trained really hard, did a lot of hill repeats, put on some weight. So when I showed up, I was ready to race. And, Paul Tilley is a friend of mine and a teammate. So we kind of looked at the race course, the elevation chart, and I told him I'm good for about 16 hours on this course. And he was like, yeah, you are. So that was my goal. And it happened. And I think it couldn't have been more perfect because I was on the team. And so I was coming there to compete for the ladies, but I had no idea that I would feel so good out there that I would actually start competing with the guys. So I had an amazing day. I'm so grateful for you guys to come up with something like this. This was completely up my alley with the carrying the spike over the mountains. It was amazing. And going back, a lot of my friends actually attended the race as well. So I was coming out there looking forward to seeing some of my friends. So we were at the start listening to you talk. Kevin's beautiful voice, singing the national anthem. That was awesome. And it started dumping rain as we were standing there. So I actually like bad weather. So I said, this is cool. I do really well in bad weather. So immediately, I think everyone was irritated by me because I like when weather is like rainy. So we started, it was wet start. It was humid, wet, started running with the guys, immediately made friends with the dog. So we started running the first climb, and it was really slick and muddy. And I actually slipped and started rolling down the mountain. Like, legit. Like, it was like maybe 10 seconds of me actually falling off a mountain. But Doug, my new friend at that point, he stood there and he was like, holy crap. Like, he didn't know what was happening. So I stopped by a tree and started crawling back up the mountain, and he pulled me out. And I was all muddy, but we were just like standing there laughing, like we're in our 40s doing this kind of stuff. This is awesome. So we continued running, and I knew from the get-go that I would be able to lead the women's race. Then I think ultimately when I started moving through the top 10 guys, I ran into some, some new friends. And finally, I ran into Justin Hamilton.
Yeah.
And
He's awesome.
he is so awesome. And Justin, if you can hear this, I appreciate you so much. You helped me so much. He looked back and saw me coming up the mountain, and he looked back again, and he was like, "Wait a minute, what?" So he was so encouraging, and he said, "Hey, do you realize there's only 4 guys ahead of you?" And I'm like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
So he was just so amazing. And so we shared a little bit of the mountain climb together and talked. And then I left him and basically continued on to chase everybody else.
That's awesome. So you kind of hinted at this, but you said you were running up the mountain. So for the first 30 or so miles or 35 or so miles until you get to Long Creek Aid Station, it's mainly all single track minus the first 2.5 miles. But then it's a lot of really steep grades, up and down. A lot of stuff I would call unrunnable. How much of that were you actually running?
Well, I would be running until I couldn't run anymore, but I think a lot of it was power hiking, like a really good power hiking. I have a similar grade hill close by where I live, and I would do repeats on that.
Wow.
Amount of repeats. Like, ask my friends how much time I spent out there on Bob's Hill. But that was mostly power hiking, not running. But solid power hiking, like moving pretty fast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I always think it's funny to me how the average person, like middle pack, back of the pack person, it's like I'll see them doing hill repeats, but they're like running them and they're in training for an ultra. And I'm sure there is some sort of benefit for that, maybe boosting your anaerobic capacity, just, VO2 max kind of stuff. But for me, if I'm training for something like this, you can't power hike enough. And a lot of people, I feel like you need to like crank up the intensity on like your power hiking. Like you don't just go out there and power hike. It's like, no, you need to go at it for speed, and try to go fast. And I find a lot of the very, very, very good ultra runners, like their power hike is like somebody else's run, uphill, which is incredible.
Yeah, so I saw that when I actually met you 2 years ago at Quest for the Crest, when I raced Sabrina Stanley. Like, she can move up a mountain, and I was like, whoa. So that's me now.
Nice. Yes.
But it takes practice. But I actually spoke with other people that finished Georgia Death Race before to give me some kind of an idea how to race it. Because definitely the first half is all the climbs and the technical things. So that required patience on my part and not do it too hard or too fast, because then in the second half, it's very runnable. So
Right.
a lot of the guys I caught up with just didn't have any legs left to really engage turnover and race that other half. So you can't start too fast or too hard, because then you have nothing left for when you need to be running. And there actually was a really good stretch of like actual road, like a main road.
Yeah.
That was like a punishment at that point. But yeah, you really got to run for, I think this could be run in 15 hours if maybe I ran a little more in the other half, but I was tired also. So, but there's a lot of running in the other half.
Well, and I think that's what's really hard. And I think a lot of people in training, we say this time and time again, they only train for the first 35 or so miles when you have all of the really steep up and down. And then come second half, when you can and should be able to at least do a shuffle, it's like they basically death march it. And I think that's what makes it awesome, but it also sucks it out of you. And then, obviously towards the end, like, the last 10 miles is a lot harder because you have the long grinding grade up Nimblewell. And then you kind of have, and even then that's still very, very runnable if you have legs. So I think a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot, and I'd really be interested. It sounds like you did a great job of this, is to see somebody who just goes really easy on like the first 35 miles and then basically goes, okay, I'm in 40th place, but now I'm actually going to go run like, 30, 35 more miles, but I'm going to run it at a pretty hard effort because my legs feel okay. So go ahead. Sorry.
You know who I think did that was the female. She was the second female.
Mo, yes.
Overall. And I think because I looked at the results and I'm like, holy smokes, like she came out of nowhere, but she had to be racing the second half to pass all the people to get to fourth overall. So that was an awesome job. I think she did what you just described. She took it easy climbs and then opened it up on the runnable sections. So
Yeah. And she was crazy talking to her. I hope we can get her on the podcast too. She was like a super positive ball of energy, and everyone's like, man, that girl in the dress was killing it, and that's, and she's
dress on? That's awesome.
Yeah, she had like a dress. I don't know. Somebody was telling me, it's like, oh, that's like the new, runner fashion. It's like, shows what I know, right? On female runner fashion. But yeah, and I talked to her for a long while at the finish line. She stayed there and actually waited for a couple of her friends to finish. I think her friend was like fifth overall, or fifth lady as well. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, she basically was like, I've only ever been like middle back of the pack. I don't know what happened today. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible. So at any point, did you ever feel pressure from anyone behind you?
No.
Or were you looking over your shoulder like?
Actually, I was looking over my shoulder because I was hoping that Paul will be coming and we'll spend some time together. And I was wondering how he was doing. But no, even before I came to Georgia, and you and I would just like touch base every once in a while. And I told you, I'm training so hard, I'm going to give you a great race. And you were like, don't, just come here and have fun. So that's what I did. I was like,
there you go.
Not really focusing on racing, like getting some crazy great time. I had a goal, but I wasn't really talking about it. I really just had a great time. So there was no pressure from the ladies field. I was pretty confident there. And then I was just having fun. Every time I ran into, a guy, they were so excited to see me. Like they were like, hey, you're a girl. It was cool.
Cool. Yeah.
We were just having a really good, just having fun. And it wasn't easy. The weather, I think it was hot and humid. It was a challenge, but my mindset was just in a really good place the whole time. The volunteers, honestly, I told you this was like the best race I've ever had, in terms of just how I felt, the training, the fitness I showed up with, the volunteers, the energy, even the local people, it was just amazing.
So you don't think you ever hit like a bottom point? You never got, too hot or too tired? You just whole time felt good?
There was one time, and I told you this because you guys put this sign up on one of those, like the final bigger climbs.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And it said 1 mile and you're there. And I'm like, okay, great. Because I only have a little bit of Gatorade left, but I'm only 1 mile. So I'm just going to drink it all and I'll get there in a mile. So I drank all my fluids. Of course, I get to that mile. And that sign was a lie because I still had obviously a couple miles to go. So I was running pretty thirsty, but
that's a hard stretch too. It's like 11 miles between the aid station.
It was. But then I would just like slow it down and run in the shade, and I was just fine. But that was the only time that I was running out of fluids, and I was a little frustrated. But no, it was awesome.
So we have for people listening, we have some signs out there that definitely kind of mess with people. We've had this for a lot of years, and we used to just have all these signs up and down this. We call it the nimble wheel breaker climb, and it's a douche grade climb. So it's like anywhere from 5 to maybe 12, 15% here and there, very short stretches. But it's 100% runnable if you just went out there and went and ran it, and you can run uphill. But it goes on forever. It's a Forest Service road, and it kind of just winds all around this mountain. And in total, it's a 3-mile climb, and it's about halfway up or so. We'll, put a sign that says, a mile until you're there, half mile until you're there. Congratulations, you're there. The aid station's is 3 miles ahead of you. This mountain has no top or something thereabout. And it's just every year, it's like, I can't believe people don't know about that or that trick, but they get there and it just messes with them so bad. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry at the same time.
No, it was fun. Yeah, no, it was all fun. I actually kind of regret I didn't bring my filter, because there were some like flowing creeks, and I could have had like nice fresh water, because it was really hot. And one more thing that like stands out in my mind is when I finished and I socialized a tiny bit and then went to take a shower and took a nap because I was leaving at 5 a.m. to get back home.
God.
The people finishing. I mean, there were people walking down that road as I was leaving the campground, and it was like 24 hours. And they were, those people are amazing. Like, they've been out there all night. And this just amazing. So I admire actually those people, because the back of the pack are those people that are in those elements the longest.
Right. And you think about it too, is if you're out there for, 20, the majority of people finish between 20 and 24 hours, just straight up. And, with the 25-hour, a new 25-hour cutoff used to be 24. We definitely get a lot of people now, a lot more people finishing that may not have done so before, which I think is awesome. And I want to encourage that and enable that. What I think is incredible, if you think about it, if you're taking the shuttle bus, which leaves at like 2:45 in the morning, you're likely waking up at like 1:30. And it's like, when did you go to bed? It's like nobody really sleeps the night before a race. So then you've been up the majority of the weekend, and like the day is about to break again, like on you. It's just that's gritty. And this year was incredible to me, because I would say everyone I saw finish like 23 plus hours. And really, I didn't see anybody who finished looking horrible. Like in every year past, yes, it got really warm, but normally at night when you go up Nimble, it's freezing. There's like a 20-mile-an-hour wind. You get up to the top, it's blowing on you. There's puddles of water, your feet are wet. Like people are getting hypothermic, like you're wrapped in everything you have. Like this year wasn't like that. Everybody I saw who finished, like, kind of the back of it, they look great. Obviously they weren't, fresh and, had not run, but, they weren't zombies walking around out there, So yeah, those people are awesome.
Yeah, it was probably nice at night, because even like later in the day when we were finishing, it was breezy and it was cooler. It was actually really nice. But I was on the shuttle bus as well. And because I got to the campsite on Friday afternoon, and the campground keeper came to tell me that it's karaoke night. So,
what?
Oh my gosh, I'm not going to get any sleep. And so I'm trying to like take a nap in the car, and these people are singing.
What? Did you jump in? Please tell me you jumped in.
I was thinking about it because I couldn't sleep. I didn't jump in, but it was, it was pretty bad, but I was just laughing, and then basically got up to get on the shuttle bus, and a friend of mine was on the other bus in front of us that caught on fire as we're.
So that we haven't touched on that. I forgot that happened. So we have 4 shuttle buses. they go from the finish line to the start, and in theory, you run back, right? So all of a sudden, and it's raining sideways. I'm there at the start line. Two buses show up. Okay, where the other two, normally they're, right behind each other. And next thing you know, like one of the drivers goes, "Oh yeah, like the other bus, like one of them broke down." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like thankfully, I schedule it where we have extra time just in case anything weird happens. But apparently, I guess the bus caught fire, and then everybody got in the other. So like, were there flames coming out, or what was going on?
So we're going up these steep roads, and I'm
Right.
getting excited because I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is the actual, like, we're up high somewhere. It was awesome. And we're going really slowly. And then we start like smelling something is burning in our bus. And then somebody notices there's like smoke coming from the bus ahead of us.
Oh no.
And all of a sudden, the bus ahead of us goes black, like lights off. It's just like the dead man's switch. The whole bus just stops, and it's dark. There's no lights. There's no nothing.
Jeez.
And we see smoke, and we're screaming. We're like, somebody's like, "Get people off that bus!" We're like,
yeah.
"What?" So everybody gets out of that bus, and I think some people took a ride in somebody's pickup truck that passed by, and then we took the rest of the people on our bus. So the bus was packed, and it was hot as blazes in there.
Yeah.
It was so heavy because I don't think any school buses had that much weight on ever. We were praying we're going to make it up the mountain, and
then hope the brakes work on the way down.
Roads like this. But it was just part of the experience. It was amazing. I mean, we had so much fun, including the bus on fire, the karaoke, me running out of water, me falling off a mountain. Just...
Quite the experience, man. Jana, that's awesome. I'm glad everybody's okay, because that freaked me out. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And the guy's like, we're taking care of it. One of the other buses is going to go back and get him. And I'm like looking at my watch. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like 4:40 right now. It's supposed to start at 5 a.m. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? But thankfully, everybody made it. Well, you're amazing. You're awesome. Congratulations. I was definitely rooting for you. Nothing against Chris. I think everybody wants to see, a lady outright win a race, from time to time. It's like so cool. It's inspiring. I think you're awesome. If you guys check out her ultra sign up score and all this stuff, all of what she's run, she just crushes it all the time, every distance pretty much. Truly amazing. She was second at the Quest 50K to Sabrina, who's a sponsored athlete. Dude, you're awesome. Please keep it up. I hope you come back and run more races, and best of luck. It looks like you're signed up for a bunch of stuff coming up too. Never a dull moment, never nothing on the horizon for you. How about that? So keep it up. Thank you for everything, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you guys so much. I hope to see you again. I would love to run that again. And actually, thank you so much for everything and what you created for people like me that were able to have these experiences. So thank you. We love you, appreciate you, and good luck with everything. Hope to see you soon.
For sure. And like I tell all the people that win my events, I give you a free entry next year if you want to run it. So no pressure right now. You can let me know soon. But if you want to come back and defend the title, we'd love to have you back. Maybe you win overall next year.
Thank you so much.
All right, girl.
I really hope everybody enjoyed this episode. I hope everyone who was a part of the Georgia Death Race, whether it was from a volunteer standpoint, a crew standpoint, a nobody standpoint, a runner standpoint, or if you were at home watching this on our Live Trail app, I really hope that this was not only entertaining, life-changing. I hope you had a very, very positive experience. As I've said time and time again, the Georgia Death Race is about one thing and one thing only, is being so difficult that at some point, whatever you're fighting, whatever you're battling, you are forced to just let that go. I guess to quote Fight Club,
or paraphrase Fight Club, it is not until you've lost everything that you are free to do anything. And with that, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting Run Bum, being a part of the Georgia Death Race. And if you enjoyed this podcast, you enjoyed this race, you enjoy what we're doing, please help me out, help me support the trail running community in the Southeast, and help do trail work and give money back. Sign up for our races. We have Sky to Summit, 50K, 25K going on sale April 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern. And the Georgia Death Race is also on sale. I hope to see each and every one of you, maybe at a race, but definitely out there on the trail. As always, bend, don't break.